Welcome back, everyone. We've got a really important deep dive planned today, focusing on breast cancer awareness and prevention.
It's a topic that affects so many people, directly or indirectly.
Exactly. And, knowledge is power, right? So we're going to break down some key information from this article. It's called Breast Cancer, Symptoms, Risks, and Prevention.
Sounds pretty comprehensive.
It is. And it's from a health and fitness website, originally written in Hindi. So we'll be translating and summarizing the key points. One thing that really jumped out at me while I was reading this was, how much we can actually DO to lower our risks.
It's empowering. I mean, it's not all just about genetics, right?
Right. Lifestyle choices play a huge role. And that's where I think our expert's going to be super helpful today. You're amazing at connecting the dots and explaining the so what behind all the science.
Well, I'm excited to dive in. I think this is going to be a really informative conversation.
All right, so let's start with the basics. What exactly is breast cancer?
So the article defines it as uncontrolled cell growth in the breast. And this often leads to, a lump or a tumor.
And the article really stresses the importance of early detection and treatment, which makes sense. So let's talk about those symptoms. They list quite a few, and I think it's worth going through each one in detail.
Absolutely. The most common one, of course, is a lump or swelling in the breast, the one everyone always talks about.
Right, but there are other more subtle things to watch out for, too.
Exactly, like nipple discharge.
And we're not talking about, milk here. Any other kind of fluid that seems out of the ordinary.
Right, or even changes in breast size or shape. That could be, unusual enlargement, shrinking.
And then they also mention skin changes around the nipple or the breast itself. So things like redness, flakiness, or even dimpling of the skin.
Yeah, any noticeable changes in the appearance of the breast really should be checked out.
So, okay, let's say someone notices one or more of these symptoms. What's the next step? I'm going to put you on the spot here, expert. What should someone actually do?
Well, the article's very clear about this. Any of these symptoms warrant a visit to the doctor ASAP. And I think it's important to emphasize that, these symptoms don't automatically equal breast cancer.
Right.
But they do need to be evaluated by a medical professional to rule out anything serious.
So it's all about early detection. Better safe than sorry.
Exactly. The sooner a potential problem is identified, the sooner treatment can begin if necessary.
Makes sense. And delaying medical attention, well, that can have serious consequences, so it's always best to err on the side of caution, right?
Definitely. A proper diagnosis, it can either give you peace of mind or allow for timely intervention. Either way, it's a win.
Okay, so speaking of things that can impact our risk, the article has a whole section on risk factors. And some of these, unfortunately, we can't control, like age. Our risk does go up as we get older.
That's true. And family history is another one. Having a close relative, like a mother, sister, or daughter who's had breast cancer, that can increase your risk significantly.
Which is why it's so important to understand your family history. Having those sometimes difficult conversations with relatives about their health.
Absolutely. Knowing your family's medical background, it can help you and your doctor, make better decisions about screening and prevention.
Now, the article also lists hormonal factors as a risk, specifically long-term use of hormone therapy or birth control pills. And this is where it gets really interesting because they really emphasize that the things we can control are lifestyle choices.
That's a huge Ishii point. I mean, we can't change our age or our family history, but we do have a significant amount of control over our lifestyle.
And those choices, well, they can really impact our risk. What's interesting to me is the article doesn't just say, lifestyle matters. They actually call out specific things.
Like what?
Smoking, excessive drinking, being inactive. Those are the things they say really increase your risk.
And it's true. Those habits have been strongly linked to an increased risk of various cancers, not just breast cancer.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about what we can do to, tip the scales in our favor. The article has some great tips for prevention, and I love how they get really specific. They start with a balanced diet, and they even mention certain foods like berries and leafy greens as being especially helpful.
Well, there's a lot of science behind that. Those foods are full of antioxidants, and those can protect ourselves from damage, including the kind of damage that can lead to cancer.
And it's not just about what we eat, right? They also talk about regular exercise, and they actually give concrete numbers. Aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous activity every week.
Now, I know some people might hear that and think, whoa, that's a lot.
Right, but the benefits are huge.
And those numbers, they're a great starting point. They're based on a lot of research. And regular physical activity, it helps regulate hormone levels, it boosts your immune system, it can even help maintain a healthy weight. And we know that's another factor linked to breast cancer risk.
Exactly. So it's not just about hitting those exact numbers. It's about, making an effort to be more active in general. Even if you can't get the full 150 minutes, any movement is better than none.
Right. Absolutely. And it
Yeah.
all adds up over time, right? You don't have to be perfect. Just make those conscious choices that, support your well-being.
And speaking of those conscious choices, we were talking about smoking and excessive drinking earlier. The article really emphasizes those as things to avoid.
Right. And for good reason. They've both been linked to a higher risk of not only breast cancer, but other types of cancer as well.
It's not just about diet and exercise then, huh? So many different factors play a role.
Exactly. It's about looking at the whole picture, you know? Making those healthier choices across the board can really make a difference.
Now, the article also stresses the importance of regular screenings, especially for women over 40, and that's where mammograms come in.
Yeah, a lot of people might not really know what a mammogram is or why they're so important.
Can you explain that a bit?
Sure. So it's basically a specialized X-ray that's specifically designed to look for anything abnormal in the breast tissue. And the key here is that they can often detect things that are too small to be felt during a regular breast exam.
Oh, wow. That makes sense. So it's all about catching things early on when they're more treatable.
Exactly.
And that early detection, that goes back to that powerful message from the article. Prevention is always better than cure. I mean, they even cite research showing that regular physical activity can actually lower breast cancer risk by up to 20%. Do you see that?
I did. It's pretty amazing. It really highlights everything we've been talking about today. We have more control over our health than we sometimes realize. We can make choices that actively reduce our risk and really empower ourselves with knowledge.
I love that it's so encouraging. It's not all doom and gloom. There's so much we can do. And it ties into their final point about maintaining a healthy weight, which they actually go into quite a bit of detail on.
Yeah, and I thought it was really interesting how they explained the why behind it. Like, why is a healthy weight so important specifically for breast cancer risk?
Yeah, they talk about how carrying extra weight, especially around the midsection, can actually impact hormone levels.
True. And we know those hormones, especially estrogen, can play a role in breast cancer development.
Wow, it really is all connected, isn't it? Our diet, exercise habits, weight, it all contributes to our overall health and well-being.
It really does. You can't separate one from the other.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of information today. For our listeners out there, what would you say are the most important things to take away from this deep dive?
Well, first and foremost, it's important to remember that breast cancer is a serious disease, but it's not a guaranteed sentence. Early detection and lifestyle choices can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. We've talked about the importance of knowing the symptoms, understanding those risk factors, and then taking proactive steps to lower your risk, whether it's through diet, exercise, regular screenings, or just, adopting healthier habits in general. There's so much you can do to take charge of your health.
I think that's the key takeaway, really. You have the power to make choices that support your health and well-being.
This has been such a fascinating conversation, and I really appreciate your expertise. You've given everyone listening so much to think about.
It's been a pleasure. For our listener out there, I'd love to leave you with a little challenge. Now that you've learned all of this, what's one small change you can commit to making this week to support your health? Maybe it's adding an extra serving of veggies to your dinner, or taking a quick walk during your lunch break, or even finally scheduling that mammogram you've been putting off.
I love that challenge. It's a great way to put all this knowledge into action. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into breast cancer awareness and prevention. Remember, knowledge is power when it comes to our health, so keep learning and asking questions. And until next time, take care.
And it's not just about taking care of our own health, right? We've got to think about the other women in our lives, too. Our mothers, sisters, daughters, friends.
That's such a good point. We can all share this knowledge, help empower the women around us to really prioritize their well-being.
Exactly. It's about starting those conversations, breaking down those stigmas, and just, supporting each other on this journey of health and wellness.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks again to everyone for joining us for this deep dive into breast cancer awareness and prevention. We hope you learned something new today. And remember, knowledge is power, so keep learning, keep asking those questions, and keep taking care of yourselves. We'll see you next time.